Live from your local election headquarters, this is Battleground Florida.
Welcome to your local election headquarters. It is primary night in Florida. Polls on the Eastern time zone just closed in the last few minutes. I am Battleground Florida host Ty Russell, and as you can see in the middle here, we have some of the results that are coming in. And joining us today is Battleground co-host Tara Newsom. And then on the left side, we have a Democratic strategist. We have also a Republican strategist. We have Jake Hoffman. Then, of course, Jackson McMillan. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to have some fun tonight.
Absolutely.
Going over all of the election results. And first, we are going to start with what people are talking about the most. Let's take a look at the Florida governor's race, the Democratic primary here. The results are still coming in, but so far, David Jolly is leading at 70%. There's Dana Foster at 11%. Dottie Joseph, a state rep in North Miami, coming in at 8%. Anything surprising with that so far?
Well, I think the TikTok teacher, as the internet loves to call her, polling above a sitting state rep is kind of a monumental upset. While the rep did launch her campaign pretty close to the filing deadline, the fact that a candidate whose campaign has been functionally totally online was able to poll 11% away from David Jolly, who's long been expected to be the favorite, I think should send some signals to his camp that they've got some work to do picking up the online voter base going into the general election.
And then let's go ahead and look at the Republicans in this race. Now, this has been a heated primary when it comes to the gubernatorial race. We have Byron Donalds, the congressman out of Naples, 50%. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, who just announced his running mate yesterday, Kevin Guthrie. He's he's at 27%. And then former Speaker of the House, Paul Renner, at 8%. Anything surprising here?
I think this is what we've expected pretty much universally amongst all the polling. I think that everybody has kind of consistently said this is Byron Donalds' race, and it's just kind of a more interesting story at this point of who's going to come in second place. And right now, our Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins looks to appear to be in that direction.
And investor James Fishback is right around the corner from us at his election night watch party. He put out polls saying that he was pretty much close to Donalds. And as we can see, at least right now, that is not happening.
I think Fishback's really interested in this race is going to be how his followers divert from his campaign and who they latch onto. Will they go beyond and follow the Republican lead with Byron Donalds, or will they actually warm up to David Jolly? Because there's a lot of messaging within those demographics that doesn't look like they're necessarily loyal to the Republican Party. It looks like they're more loyal to Fishback.
And of course, only 20% reporting right now. So we are still waiting on some of those results. And let's move over to the U.S. Senate race. Let's look at Ashley Moody first, the Republican primary here. Of course, Ashley Moody is the incumbent. She was endorsed by President Trump, endorsed by Governor DeSantis, appointed to this seat by Governor DeSantis. 81%, no surprise here.
Oh, no surprise there, Ty. She's a Tampa girl. She's never lost a race. She ran a very quiet but steady and consistent message, and we expected her to come out on top.
And Jake, do you expect Moody in the general election to have a debate, do you think?
I don't know whether she's going to have a debate or not, but I can tell you, I think that she's probably very confident that she's going to just kind of cruise in this election. She might actually end up having a wider margin of victory than maybe a governor's race in the general.
And let's go ahead and look at the Democratic primary in the U.S. Senate race. This one was pretty heated. State Rep Angie Nixon leading right now with 38% of the votes in, and Alex Vindman, 47%. Now, many people remember Angie Nixon. She is known as the progressive candidate in this race. She was involved in a sit-in at Governor DeSantis' office, which she is now facing misdemeanor charges for. There's a trial coming up in September with that. And Alex Vindman, many remember from the Trump impeachment hearing during Trump 1.0 involving Ukraine. And is this surprising to anybody here?
You know, I am surprised. Vindman had a lot more money in his war chest. And although Angie Nixon had been known to be boots on the ground around the state, she has recently aligned herself with Democratic Socialists of America. And not a lot of Democrats are necessarily ready to take that on for a statewide candidate. So I'm a little bit surprised by this. Of course, we only have 38% reporting in. So we have to wait to see how this goes out. I think we're going to have to wait to see a couple more minutes minutes to see how this really flushes out.
I'm actually not surprised, and here's why. Democratic primaries in the state of Florida are traditionally won in 7 or 8 key blocks. Tallahassee, where Angie Nixon has worked for the better part of a decade, Duval, which is her home turf, Orange County, where she secured all the major endorsements, and then Broward and Miami-Dade County, where she secured critical endorsements and support from the Black communities there as well. If you'll remember, Andrew Gillum won there in 2018, picking up Miami-Dade County. I think Alex Vindman has struggled a lot with energizing voters on the ground and building trust. And fundamentally, money isn't what wins elections, trust is. So,
well, I would say that we can respectfully disagree in the sense that Angie Nixon has had some issues with trust because of her answers to really tough questions about the U.S. Senate and what she's going to do on important policy. And so there's some people that don't necessarily agree with that.
And Jake, who do you think Moody will have the hardest race with? Will it be Angie Nixon or Alex Vindman?
You know, I'll tell you, I'm just not sweating if I'm Ashley Moody about either one of these candidates. I think that she's going to cruise no matter which one of them are the candidate of the, comes out of this Democratic primary here. I mean, obviously, I think Angie Nixon is very easy for us to attack as a Democratic socialist. We get to use all the talking points about, how far left she actually is. And then with Vindman, you've got this whole Ukraine thing that's got, behind him. And I think
you mean he was a whistleblower? You mean that was a big thing about him, that he's a whistleblower?
There's a lot to talk about there.
You know what? Vindman actually, if he's able to scratch this out, brings in money from out of the state. That's what we're going to be looking for out of this. He's going to be able to get money to support a message that actually looks at Moody's record, especially her record with Hope Foundation and Hope Florida. That's a big deal. And if voters actually knew about that it may not be a slam dunk.
And
there's just no one running ads on that right now.
I'm just not sweating if I'm Ashley Moody right now.
Well, that's because no one's funded to get that message out there.
And then some of the congressional races, of course, have been called because some of the candidates are unopposed in some of these races. But let's go ahead and look at our first race here. We have Kathy Castor, as you can see. That's your she was unopposed in this race, District 14. But let's look at the Republican side here. This is going to be interesting.
It was crowded, Ty. This was a very crowded race, and this is going to be a plurality candidate. It's not going to, no one's going to get the majority vote here. So I think this is going to be interesting to see. It's also showing a fissure in the Republican Party. This many candidates vying for the ability to run against Kathy Castor and to get so ugly. This was an ugly, dirty race. We saw the commercials. Everybody in Tampa Bay saw it. So I think this is going to be a race to watch, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be clean. And Kathy Castor, I think, is going to need all the support she can get from the Democratic National Party to fund her response.
I'm sure Jake has a lot to say about this.
I do have a lot to say about this race in particular. I think that this is a crowded primary, which is a good thing because this is the first time that this has been a redistrict map where Republicans feel like they actually can go and make a real run at Kathy Castor. And so, of course, you're going to have like 10 people jump in it. It's an open seat. It kind of leans Republican a bit. They're all going to have a tough time. And
they all gave great opposition research to Kathy Castor for her campaign in the primary. So I don't know if that's really great Republican messaging.
But I still think it's, when you're going to have a brand new seat without a clear Republican front runner to go take it, you're going to have an open primary. I don't think primaries are bad. And again, this is going to be an interesting one because right now it feels very close. And I don't think anybody has a really strong opinion on where this is going to land depending on which candidate. And as you can see, I think there's still 0% in on the screen here. So we will see how it turns out at the end of the night. But there's a lot going on there.
But polls have been showing that Mike Beltran, former state rep, and then also Kevin Steele, another former state rep, are leading the pack. And there's controversy with this because Kevin Steele... With both candidates. Kevin Steele posted a picture early voting when he was still serving as a state representative in Pasco County. And then Mike Beltran, he denied any involvement in the voter guide issue, but Hillsborough GOP printed out voter guides just to let voters know who are the Republicans in the race. And one of the volunteers, who is a Beltran supporter, started circling or underlining his name. And that volunteer got in trouble with the party and asked not to return. So, Jake, do you think any of that will impact?
I think that's just a lot of primary antics that go on in some of these races. And
then the endorsement text?
The endorsement text is probably the most interesting thing. Last night we get an endorsement text. I look down on my phone while I'm driving. I shouldn't have done that, right? But I look down at my phone while I'm driving and I go, wow, I was Trump endorsed the day before. Interesting. Put my phone down. And then, an hour later, oh, wait, that actually wasn't a real. But a lot of voters are going to look at that and they weren't going to recognize. So there's a lot there. That is a very interesting campaign tactic to do the night before an election. And so again, this is going to be a very interesting race. And unlike Ashley Moody's race, they all should be sweating Kathy Castor, because I don't think it is not a slam dunk by any means. If anything, Kathy Castor might be leading in all the polls.
Right. And let's go ahead and go through some more of the congressional races, because of course District 14 is going to be heated. This one we are watching over in Pinellas County, U.S. House District 13. This is the Democratic primary. We expected, at least the polls showed, that Leela Gray will likely be the nominee to face Anna Paulina Luna. This is with 79% reporting. So Leela Gray, and there's a check mark there if I'm not mistaken. So it appears the AP has called this race for Leela Gray.
And you know what's interesting about this one, Ty, is that both Leela Gray and Anna Paulina Luna are both using national media to take their message to voters. And this has been a traditional district. Well, the area has been traditionally very locally centered. Okay. And so to have the focus of the candidates more on national politics and getting national play, we even saw Anna Paulina Luna use her visit on Bill Maher's show as part of her campaign, fodder. It really shows that these two candidates are taking it national, that they want Florida, that district, to be a national conversation, and are really, really pandering to sort of national messaging. So it's much different than what for the last 30 years we've ever seen in that area. And I think it might not necessarily bode well for voters who really want their congressperson to take care of local politics first rather than national politics.
And Jake and Jackson, so Democrats, national Democrats, started investing in this race even before this primary. They were already backing Leela Gray, the national Democrats. Jackson, is that normal to happen?
I would say the DCCC has, that's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, has taken up a strategy in Florida where they have endorsed prior to the primaries in multiple seats across the state. You also see Florida's 7th congressional district. They did this as well. In some of those key pickup seats, I believe they also endorsed in Florida's 17, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And that is a little bit abnormal for us as Floridians who are not used to national money coming in this early, at least not in the most recent decade. I think other states are a little bit more used to this, especially more traditional swing states. However, Leela Gray has had a pretty confident lead in terms of money, in terms of local support for the better part of this primary. I mean, I've met all these candidates and they all have some great ideas for the district, but I think that this is one of those races where, getting in and getting in the fight early could really matter. And, the district, it's been one of the more competitive ones in Tampa Bay over the last couple cycles in terms of money coming in.
Democrats have been constantly saying, we're going to flip it. We're going to flip it. We're going to flip it, but no flip.
Well,
Jake?
We've also never seen money come in this early before, so
and we haven't had a candidate like Leela Gray either. She's toe-to-toe veteran, all the same, woman, attractive.
But Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, an incumbent, she's a powerful person right now in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
Led the efforts on the Epstein files.
Absolutely.
Of course, the space stuff and the aliens. I forgot what we call them now. In
AFPs.
Yes, AFPs.
But I will let me pour water on everything everybody just said over here. Anna Paulina Luna is going to win, and she's going to win big. And I don't think it matters how much money.
And as you can see, she was nobody was running against her. So.
Anna, I'm biased. Okay, that's fine. Anna might be our president in 30 years. Okay, I'm just telling you, she is so popular in this district. It is unbelievable.
Where do you live? I live near. I was in that district. I'm not so sure about that.
But I will tell you that is not going to be nearly as competitive. I think that, like Ty was saying, that this is one of these seats where the Democrats nationally look. They want to give her a challenge. Like, she's very outspoken. She's on TV. She's doing all this national media.
She has her bathing suits.
No comment. That's totally fine for Pinellas County congressional seats. That's fine. I mean, what?
It's 2026. You can campaign in a bathing suit.
You can campaign. I almost watched.
I guess I'm the only woman that worries about being objectified. That's okay. No worries. You know what? Listen, it comes down to this. Can she speak to affordability? Can she deliver on the Epstein files? Can she actually go toe-to-toe with Leila Gray? I would love to see a debate between the two of them. I'd love to see their policy differences. I think the voters in Pinellas County are going to be asking for that.
Leila Gray is a strong candidate. I mean, I've been able to have a sit down with her, and she is definitely strong. But Anna Paulina Luna, I mean, she is equally.
She does. She's got the backing of Donald Trump. But
Yeah.
listen, in the state of Florida and in Pinellas County, go ahead and look at favorability ratings and disfavorability ratings of Donald Trump. And this is why this election is so important. We're going to see whether or not Donald Trump and his favorability and disfavorability ratings are going to draw candidates down. I think that we won't know that through the primary, but we'll certainly know that by November.
It'll be interesting. And now we are going to move forward with more of the House races, because this is just fascinating. The balance of power runs through Florida, of course.
Yes.
Let's look at Sidney Gruters. This is a President Trump endorsed candidate to replace retiring Republican Vern Buchanan, well respected in Sarasota and Manatee, by the way. And this redrawn district kind of gets to St. Pete now, into Manatee, and then goes to other rural
It's downtown
counties.
St. Pete.
Yeah, downtown
So
St. Pete.
downtown St. Petersburg. So I live downtown St. Pete. She is now going to be my new congressperson. And you know, I have to tell you,
You're already saying she's going to win.
a lot of people. Well, she's clearly going to be the Republican nominee. I have to say that you don't understand the purple parts of Pinellas County unless you look at downtown St. Pete. So I just don't think that there's enough of the purple parts of St. Pete to actually upset this district, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that this is something that, again, this was almost a foregone conclusion during the primary. Look, her husband is the head of the RNC.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Donald Trump
they're not going to
endorsement.
let her lose.
She is going to win this primary, and then I think the numbers are very much in the Republicans'
agree.
favor in this district.
I
I don't know if is the DNC even investing in this one as a district? Maybe they have to.
But we've had a multi-way primary
It's a
in that
crowded
district as
race.
well, but nobody is. I believe I believe he was a former mayor of Sarasota, is kind of leading the pack. But still, he's raised like $110,000. I expect. Yep.
And here
Kelly
was a look at
Kirshner,
the
that's
Kelly Kirshner.
that is
Democrats.
about how I expected this to go.
Yeah.
Kelly, having been to a lot of Democratic events in South Pinellas in the last couple of weeks, I've seen a lot of Kelly Kirshner shirts. My money would have been on him, but the nation's money isn't on him, at least for the general. He's only raised about $112,000 or so last I checked. And so that is just not going to be enough to go up against the great Gruters war chest, as it were.
That I totally agree. I totally agree. But that really shows how the epicenter of Sarasota has bled into St. Pete, and really through gerrymandered districts is really like cracking what used to be a traditionally Democratic seat.
So basically what you're saying is Democrats have no hope on flipping.
I don't know. I
District
think
16.
I apologize for interrupting. I don't think there's any necessarily seat that's necessarily out of range for Democrats this year. I mean, I think we should not underestimate how bad things have gotten so far. I talked to a Republican strategist about 2 years ago who said, Florida could only go blue if gas prices were above $5 and we were at war by November. And sure enough, I called him a few weeks ago and was like, how you feeling about it now? And he's like, well, not great. Right. And so I think there are a lot of races. I mean, this seat is red, but it's only marginally outside of the reach of the, quote unquote, DCCC marked flip seats, which is about R+9 or so. This is only a little bit out of reach of that. If something crazy happens between now and November, Donald Trump's approval ratings are in the toilet. I think what we're looking at here in races like these are not necessarily whether or not Kelly Kirshner can beat the Gruters machine so much as are voters motivated to come out to the polls by kind of national ambiance and feelings, right? Democrats are upset. Republicans are, they're not pleased, right? And so I think it's a turnout game, not necessarily a head-to-head game.
I think you cannot undersell the independents and no party affiliates. If they lean the same way they lean in special elections, which Jake was on our show earlier in the year, and he said, it's a special election for a reason. Well, guess what? It is also an indicator of the feeling of voters. And if independents, no party affiliates actually lean toward the Democratic candidates, it's possible that Kelly Kirshner actually has a fighting chance, or at least gives a roadmap for the next election in 2 years.
And then we will move forward to cover another U.S. House race here. Of course, there is Congressman Gus Bilirakis He didn't have any challengers, so that's why the check mark is there. And then these are the people who are hoping to challenge him in House District 12. And the redrawn district goes from like West Tampa all the way up to like Hernando.
It's hard to listen. 40 years of his dad, and 20 years of his dad, 20 years of him, 40 years of the last name. It's hard to upset that apple cart. He has a great chance of holding on to a seat.
Well, and let me say, he is actually, for not having a primary, and again, like you said, it's been a long time he's held that seat, and his father held the seat. He is actually putting in the work on the ground right now, and he is meeting people, and he's doing all of the retail politics that you should be doing. So I do credit Congressman Bilirakis, and I know Jackson probably has some opinions over here on what's going on in the Democratic primary.
This is actually an upset. Darren McCauley was backed very early on by a lot of national players and raised significantly more money. But what we saw in the finance reports, this is actually one I predicted as well, because what happened was McCauley did raise the most, and he seemed to have a lot of early momentum, but it's a big district. And towards the end of the election, he started to run out of money. And so while this could definitely swing back, the reason why it's closer than it's expected is Commissioner Overman comes in with name recognition of having represented a lot of this region before, whereas McCauley's the newcomer. So the burden is actually on him to spend to get that name recognition. And I never really saw it coming out of the expenditures reports. It's still close and could go either way, but I'm not super shocked to see Commissioner Overman pulling ahead there.
And then I just want to take a live look here. This is the St. Pete mayoral race. We are looking at the Charlie Crist camp. A lot of people here, a lot of people are talking about the St. Pete mayoral race, whether the incumbent Mayor Welch will be able to keep his seat. But right now it's looking kind of like that's not going to happen.
It's not even that. I think a lot of people are watching to see if he will even make it through the primary. And so this is a very, really deeply felt race in St. Pete right now because of the aftermath of the hurricane, of losing the Tropicana, of a lot of affordability issues that are plaguing people that live and work in St. Pete who don't feel like they can live in the place that they work. And so Welch is really taking it on the chin. And I've got to tell you, we have not seen a mayoral candidate raise $2 million like Charlie Crist did. So,
and as you can see, the results are in with 58% reporting, Charlie Crist at 36%, Kenneth Welch at 21%, and Brandy Gabbard at 17%.
And this is the one that we're watching to see if Brandy Gabbard can overtake Ken Welch and actually come in second. And if she can, that's really going to be an indicator. If she even gets close to Welch, I think the Charlie Crist campaign has a real issue.
And then, of course, we're taking one last live look here at the Charlie Crist campaign. But I do want to go back to that congressional race that we were talking about in Hillsborough County, the Republican congressional race. Let's take a look at that because we have Mike Beltran at 45%, Kevin Steele 31%, Bia Valenti 10%, and Rocky Rochford at 7%. And polls did show this exact order.
They really did. But you're going to hear Kevin Steele.
And this is 99% in. So basically,
yeah, this is pretty much done.
The Associated Press has called Mike Beltran, former state rep Mike Beltran, to face Kathy Castor this November.
It's going to be interesting to see what Kevin Steele says about the text messaging that went out regarding the endorsement of Trump. But it's also interesting to note here that Mike Beltran and Kevin Steele both lent themselves to over $2 million to run their campaigns, where Kathy Castor had over $2 million of individual contributions. So when you look at contributions and campaign finance, you have to recognize that those contributions actually equal votes. And so,
and then I'm texting Beltran to see if he's able to step away. Probably not, but I'll see if he's
probably a little excited right now. But
yeah,
I will say that this result is a little surprising to me that it's this wide of a margin. Like you said, Kevin Steele spent a lot of money. We got a lot of Kevin Steele flyers in the mail during this primary here, and
he had one heck of a TV commercial run too. I mean, against Beltran.
Let me tell you, these candidates here, Rocky and Bia, they are not done with this race. They are very upset about the voter guide situation.
Yes.
And then
I don't know if you can circle enough voter guides to make up 5,000 to 23,000 votes.
But they called
understand
on
that they're
Evan Power
upset, yeah,
to take some action as well. I don't even know if Evan Power will step in and even make a comment, but
I think it would be, again, this is a kind of a
And
more
there's the check
isolated
mark there.
incidents, with a couple of volunteers or whatever. But look, Mike is one. Congratulations to Mike Beltran. I think we actually had great candidates. Kevin Steele is a great candidate. Bia is a great candidate. I hope I see her running for something, maybe in the future. But these guys really did have a very tough race in an open primary in this situation, and there was not a clear winner. And you saw that, again, because you never got a Trump endorsement. And if Trump doesn't come out and endorse,
it's kind of anybody's game. Yeah.
I will tell you, though, I do think that now that Mike Beltran is the Republican candidate against Kathy Castor, that there will be outside money coming in to support Kathy Castor, because Beltran represents a much more conservative Republican than ever before has been in this
20
district.
years for Kathy Castor. Never had to campaign, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Now she has to campaign.
Yes.
Jackson, can she win?
It's a real concern. I fully believe and am confident that her name recognition, her name's been on projects for the last 20 years, like you said, since I was literally in in elementary school, right? Like there's her name recognition is kind of unparalleled. So it's kind of similar to the race we were talking about earlier, where it's going to be the burden is going to be on Beltran to prove why she should not stay. I think that Congresswoman has a lot of work to do with building up trust with young voters. I think she's very well established in the community but the margin, especially in this new seat, may be found in young and young family independent voters. When I say young, I mean under 50, by the way, which of today's primary makeup makes up less than 25% is under the age of 50, right? So I think that going into the general, those voters probably don't have quite the same, faith in her as some of the older community members do, right? And so I think she will need to really put some time and energy into mobilizing those voters. And if she can mobilize them, I think she will have a real strong shot of surviving the upcoming November.
And I think one of the more interesting stats, if we can get it at some point while we're here, is how many people over 65 have voted in this election versus how many young voters that we have that actually turned out. Because there was this idea that maybe, James Fishback was going to pull out all these under 30-year-olds. And then maybe there were some of these other candidates on TikTok and they were going to pull out a bunch of young people. And, what last I saw, it was very, very minimal still. We're still talking 2 to 3% turnout for the 18 to 24 demo. The 24 to 35 demo is pretty low too. And then over 65, we're looking at 20+%, 30% of them are voting. And so, our state is still very much run by people who are not our age, Jackson. I'll just say that.
And then I want to pause there really quickly because I do want to bring up State Senate District 16. We have Minority Leader Fentrice Driscoll facing State Rep Michelle Rayner. This has been a heated primary because this is a universal primary.
Right.
So pretty much that's why all voters in that district saw this race on their ballot.
Too early. Only 33%.
I was going to say, also, it's a state Senate district, so that 33% matters more. I mean, that's only an 1,100 voter gap. Would you agree that this is still anyone's game?
Too early. Yeah. Too early to know.
The money spent in this race was just truly unreal. I mean, it's very rare that we see, Florida corporations, Associated Industries of Florida coming in for a state Senate race, not uncommon. Meta coming in with a $250,000 spend in a state Senate primary is something that I at least have never seen something in.
And I would say is concerning. Like, why are you paying, if you're Meta, why are you giving $250,000 to Fentrice Driscoll? I mean, I look, there's no Republicans in this race. It's going to be a Democrat. It is what it is. But like, why are you starting now? What else is that war chest going to eventually start leading her, into?
I think it shows a little bit something different for me. It's a trend. Michelle Rayner looks like the new kind of Democrat, and Fentrice Driscoll is representing sort of the last 20 years of failed Democratic leadership to many voters. And so Michelle Rayner is sort of representing this new type. And so, if she doesn't necessarily able to win this race, it may mean that there's some stalling in the Democratic leadership because Michelle Rayner is definitely on the bench of the Democratic candidates.
And now I want to take a live look at James Fishback's election night headquarters in Tampa. Yes, the crowd looks very different from, let's say, a Donald's crowd. However, he has moved to third, 10%. Let's take a look at those results that are coming in right now. Byron Donald's at 50%. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins at 25%.
I just like to say I'm winning my bets tonight.
James Fishback at 9%. What do you think?
I'm actually surprised that Byron Donalds got to 50%, to be honest.
Really?
I really didn't think he would inch all that way, but he's there.
And this
he's
is just with
moneyed.
63%.
But I think that James Fishback getting to 9% is really an issue for Republicans, because you have to really determine, will those voters actually, if clearly James Fishback is not going to be the nominee. Will
these voters right here vote for Byron Donalds?
That's exactly the question.
They're not going to vote for, I mean, to be clear, the question is not whether or not they're going to come vote for David Jolly, presumptively our gubernatorial nominee at this point. I mean, young people see football or see elections more as almost like football. When the Bucks aren't having a good season, I don't put on an Eagles jersey. I don't go to the games, right? That's not personally how I operate, but that's how a lot of people of my generation operate. Right? I think these voters will just stay home. Now, the question becomes, does Byron need those votes to come out to vote for him to surmount David Jolly? And I would say it's a real possibility that he is going to need to appeal to those younger voters.
I think, as somebody who's, led young Republicans groups for a long time, I'm 35. I'm on the older side of the young Republicans. But, the James Fishback, these college age 18 to 24-year-olds, the people that are in that room that you just showed, they may have never showed up for a primary ever in their life. So that 100,000 votes that you're seeing on the screen right now, that might be a lot of people who do not vote, and they never voted, and they're not being counted. So if they don't show up in November, then
we're all on the same page here. But then you have to put on the ledger the independents and no party affiliates that do show up, and because of the election and the issues, lean to the left. And then all of a sudden, you have the perfect calculus for David Jolly to win. After 30 years, after 30 years of not having a Democrat in the governor's mansion.
We keep saying that. And I, again, as the Democrat on this side of the table, I'm going to hope that's true with every fiber of my being. And to give some credibility to that, we did see some of that in the Brian Nathan special election,
Absolutely.
right? But that's Hillsborough County, right? Not the whole state. And,
look at the polling. Look at the polling. The polling around the state is saying that independents are leaning to the left, and they're also looking at Republican women. Republican women are crossing across party and not voting either in this primary because they want to hold their vote and vote for David Jolly.
That's very interesting. And let's take a closer look at some of these results right now. David Jolly at 62%, wow. Dana Foster 14%, and Dottie Joseph 9%.
Again, it's truly incredible to me, and we should really be taking a lesson. And I hope David Jolly's camp is listening to this. Dana Foster being able to pull 14% through TikTok alone. I mean, the most money she spent was on her filing fee to get on the ballot, right? And frankly, there is a real lesson to be learned there, that there is 14% of Democratic voters who are reachable and motivatable through good social media content alone. And that is not something David Jolly has had a very strong showing of. Frankly.
So are you saying that she's getting it from the Democrats on TikTok, young people on TikTok, and James Fishback is not on TikTok. He's getting it from the young Republicans, I guess, on X. Maybe is that what we're seeing here? I mean,
Fishback has done incredible on TikTok as well. His a lot of interaction.
I'm not on
there.
It. I'm too.
I started making content a few years ago, and the algorithm sucked me in.
I watch you.
Thank you.
I love your TikTok stuff.
But to your point, both Dana Foster and Fishback are showing us that you can use social media in a very effective way. But just because she got 14% doesn't mean that 62% isn't something. That's really something.
Social media, I want us to check out the race involving Matt the welder for ag commissioner. Because that is a person who has been on social media, and it seems like TikTok is not turning into tick votes.
Well, I'll speak on this one because, look, Matt's generally from our area. Wilton's kind of from the area as well.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing here is 70-30. That is as big of a blowout in politics as you can get. And so, sometimes people vote against, a Wilton Simpson who's kind of been the guy. He's, quote unquote establishment. Sometimes people are just sending a message to Tallahassee and saying, we just want the other guy. We just want the other guy. And so I'd actually be interested to see, same with our CFO's race and our CFO's primary. And if we could pull up I don't know what that looks like right now, but if that's similar to 70-30, again, you just have 30% of Republicans.
And here's the Florida chief financial officer.
You just have 30% of Republicans, 40% of Republicans who are just kind of mad.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of mad at they're just kind of mad at Tallahassee
I
for
agree with
not
that.
going conservative enough on some of the things.
we
On
have
some
the
of the
Democratic
issues.
results
I don't
for
know if
this?
you have the ability to say that, but
Well, that is the 30% right there. They are
you know,
unhappy.
They,
And
may-
here's
they
the,
may not be unhappy
Democratic
because they're
race.
conservative enough. They may be unhappy about other things.
And of course,
within that
people
candidate.
suspect that Annette Taddeo will take this away,
Yes.
former state lawmaker Annette Taddeo. And we had her on Battleground along with
and
Earl
we had
Ford.
Earl Ford, yeah.
And
But that she was much more well funded. She had much more experience in running a statewide campaign. This doesn't surprise me very much.
so Jake Jackson, will Blaise Ngolia keep his job?
I think that's a really great question. You know, one thing I know about Senator Taddeo, having known her for many years, is that she does not back down from a fight. She does not take no for an answer, and she expects the most from the people who work around her in the absolute best way. She's got a lot of firepower backing her. You know, Ruthless Florida has more and more shown that they are a dominant force in supporting Democratic candidates up and down the ticket, and they have been behind her since day one. I would not be surprised to see that race being a huge priority for them, besides the state legislative races that they typically support. And I think, frankly, you know, having a primary Spanish-speaking candidate as one of our seats on the top of the ticket can really, really go a long way to talk about things like 2 voters in Miami, 2 voters in South Florida, how crazy it is that we're spending millions of dollars on things like Alligator Alcatraz when traffic takes us on average 20% longer to get to where you're going for your work commute in Florida than it did just 5 years ago. Why are we burning money on Trump's passion projects instead of making life better for Floridians? And she can deliver that message in Spanish to thousands of voters, and that could make a real difference.
And I will tell you why Blaise is going to win this race. He is, look, the top of the ticket on the Republican side. The numbers have just swung pretty well in our favor as Republicans. I don't know what the final numbers are going to look like for the primary tonight, but we're going to have more Republicans show out. And, you know, when you're talking about the Doge efforts, you know, you're talking to somebody who was the Hillsborough County, you know, Doge chair for the last year. And the work that he has done, the Doge effort is popular. Now, whether it actually ever gets enacted and people actually do anything about it
popular
around
with
the state,
Republicans.
I think, but it is it's even because even Mom Donnie is doing it, and he's calling it Coge. You know, people don't want to see waste at a local level, and so just bringing it to people's attention, and I think where he's going to have a hard time with is, can he actually get the local counties to do something once you point at it? And that is really the issue we're seeing. But I think that overall, look, he's got a PR campaign where he's been running around doing the Doge around a whole state,
That's
and that
tied
means
to
something.
kind of Amendment 3, really, because
yeah.
the state would like to see property taxes reduced for Floridians. And so he's been trying to push
It was
that. But
masterful. Listen, his 67 county tour of the Doge was masterful. Okay. But the aftermath is what is going to be in the voters' memory. And so we'll have to see if whether or not he can actually combat some of that, because Doge really cut some programs that really hurt a lot of voters, including Republican voters.
Well, I don't see Doge has really cut anything at this
Well,
point.
they made
You know,
the
especially
suggestions,
and here
and
in
then-
Hillsborough County, they're going to put $2 billion more on the budget next year than they did this year. They're not actually cutting anything locally, and so like I said, they're just bringing the attention to it is important. But as far as like, nobody's programs have gotten cut yet. No, like there's stuff that's going on. People have a bad taste in their mouth
Yes,
over the Elon
yes,
Musk and the
yes,
national stuff.
yes.
But statewide, people want to see cuts. They want to see cuts. Their local government spend too much money. I don't know what to say.
I will say, in a rare moment of bipartisanship the viewers may appreciate, I read Jake's brief on the Hillsborough Doge.
Thank you.
and,
Somebody did.
our
commissioners didn't.
And you and I had a thoughtful conversation in the comments section about some stuff that we really agreed on. That is just, I think, tightening spending also means that at least from a Democratic perspective, when spending is going to the wrong places and isn't producing efficient results, we can take that money and we can put it directly into people's pockets, whether it be through jobs, through infrastructure, saving time on commutes like we were talking about earlier. I think most voters would rather see their tax dollars be used efficiently. That's, like you said earlier with Mom Donnie, that's really a bipartisan issue. We want government that works for working people. Right?
I think both of you are right, except that regular voters don't like the fact that home rule is being erased. They don't want local control to be taken away from them. And so that's what that represented. That's what they're unhappy about.
Yeah.
They don't want the state's finger in their business.
briefly, we are taking a live look at the Donalds camp in Orlando. Byron Donalds, of course, is leading the pack here to potentially face David Jolly this November. Of course, there's term limited Governor Ron DeSantis. He has not made an endorsement in this Republican primary, but through his kind of support behind, Paul Renner saying that he may be a, quote, good governor. But I just wonder how Governor DeSantis will get involved if indeed, which is what we expect, Byron Donalds is the nominee as well. What do you think?
Jake,
I think, look, DeSantis has stayed out of this as much as somebody who wants control of the state of Florida can possibly stay out of it. I can try to theorize, what's going on in the governor's head right now about all of this, but it is very clear he did not have a person that he wanted to come after him. And if he did, they're not on this ballot right now. It's very clear he would get himself involved if that were the case.
I agree. And I just have this feeling that one of the reasons he hasn't attached himself to any of the candidates, including Byron Donalds, is because I think he's afraid of what's going to come out in the general election. There's a lot of controversy about the donors that give to Byron Donalds, a lot of controversy about his past legislation, some of his past family's relationships with charter schools. And so, he wants to protect his legacy to run for 2028. And if he attaches himself to the wrong train and it goes down.
And sorry about that. Speaking of President Trump endorsed candidates, let's go to Sydney Gruters. She's in House District 16 right there. And we are looking at this race, 65%, Eddie Spear, 19%, Ed Pope, 17%. We're looking at 63% of the vote being in. What are your thoughts so far on this?
I think we all expected it. I mean, they're not going to let her lose. And so this is what we expect. And you might even see numbers like this when you depends.
This race was not, she didn't really have a strong competitor. This was not a competitive primary in the same way that we had here in Tampa in the district right above it.
And I'm actually really interested in some of South Florida races. Debbie Wasserman Schultz race, Congressional District 20, is pretty controversial right now. And I'm wondering if we have those numbers that we can talk through.
I have it here on the side.
All right.
Oh, look at you.
This is one I was watching closely tonight because I think it's been a very interesting primary. Kind of low spend, though. Like, it's been largely been duked out online. There's been about $500,000 that came in from outside of the district for outside advertising for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It looks like she is the projected winner, according to NBC, at 47.8% of the vote. This is over Dale Holness, who is a former mayor in the area, for 22.1% of the vote. And then Elijah Manley, of course, at 13% of the vote. And then holding up is former Congresswoman Sheila Sheriff-Lewis McCormick. She was removed, of course, previously.
Still getting votes.
Still getting votes.
8.9%, in fact.
All right.
And then Luther Campbell, or Uncle Luke, is
Uncle Luke.
Uncle Luke.
8.1%.
Hey, you got 4,400 votes so far. I mean, this is actually gaining national attention.
See, I would have pulled for Uncle Luke to win because, as a Republican, I just think that that's a fun story. I like fun stories. I am really a fan of when politics becomes fun. And
just briefly, Jake, I'm sorry. We are taking a live look at the Mayor Welch campaign. This is in St. Petersburg. We're having a bit of an issue there with the camera, but he is expected to speak in just a few minutes at 8 o'clock. So we are monitoring that. This is the St. Pete mayoral race. Charlie Crist is expected to speak as well. Here's a look at the numbers with 78% reporting. Charlie Crist at 36%, Kenneth Welch at 21%, and Jim Large at 18%. Oh, that's interesting.
This is why
there.
Republicans are not running in the St. Pete mayor's race. That is exactly why. St. Pete has become very liberal. I don't know how else to say it. We've sent all of the college kids from USF
maybe
down
it could
there.
be that the rest of the state became very conservative.
No, we sent them all to St. Pete. All of the Democrats went to St. Pete. It's getting bluer and bluer and bluer. And luckily in Tampa, we seem to be kind of
I think what you
see
is a lot of people from out of state move to St. Pete, downtown especially.
And then there is an update in the Sydney Gruters race. Can you guys guess?
They called it.
The win.
They called it.
The Associated Press has called this race. So Sydney Gruters will be the Republican nominee to replace a retiring Congressman Vern Buchanan. No surprise there, right? Because she is President Trump endorsed. She's the wife of RNC Chair Joe Gruters, who is also a sitting state senator in the Suncoast area. So Sydney Gruters We'll have another election in November, but Democrats say that she will what, Jackson?
I think that every single Republican who's within an R+15 district knows that they're going to have to campaign really hard.
And then let's, sorry to interrupt, let's go ahead and take a live look right here. It seems like Charlie Crist is about to speak at his election event. Let's bring up the audio just so you can hear him talk right now.
I just, Secretary Peterman, I'm sure you're here. Chelsea, my fiance, I can't thank you enough. Robert, my man. Jonathan, where is Mayor Baker? He's tall. Boom, my man. Thank you, Rick, very, very much. We're a couple of Knowles, but I love the Gators too, right, Ed? Why not? I can't tell you how grateful I am, really. What is this balloon? Stand over here. Yeah, I see it. Anyway, I'm not going to talk for long. I am just full of gratitude and no attitude. And I can't thank you enough for what you all did, for all your help, your support, your prayers, your money. It was great. I can't thank you enough. Honest to God, I am humbled and overwhelmed. Gina, thank you. It's just amazing what happened here. We got a 15-point lead. That's incredible. Over an incumbent. It's very humbling, and we have a long way to go, about 70 days to November the 3rd. I had mixed emotions. People were starting to ask me toward the end, do you want it to end on primary night? And I'm like, I love campaigning so much. Because I love people. It's really kind of simple, Rick. It's how we roll. And I can't thank you enough. We've got to make St. Pete affordable. We've got to do the things that we need to do to change and get it better, get us back on track. And we're going to do that, Melissa. We're going to make that happen with your help, Reverend Sykes. Thank you. You had some great quotes in the paper today. God bless you. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Enjoy this. And let's get to work tomorrow early. It's incredible what we can do. And we'll bring St. Pete back and make St. Pete shine once again. God bless you. Thank you so much. Johnny.
Okay, and that was Charlie Crist, former Governor Charlie Crist, talking about his race. Let's take a look at where he stands, 35%, and Kenneth Welch at 21%. Kenneth Welch is now talking. Let's take a listen to what he has to say, the incumbent.
That were laid bare by the 2024 hurricanes. We didn't point fingers. We're fixing the problems. And through it all, I've shown up to do the work, whether it's in City Hall or in the community. I've kept my promises to the community, and we've made the tough decisions, always focused on inclusive progress and delivering results for the people of St. Petersburg. I've been blessed to be the leader our city needed during the fight, not a Monday morning quarterback.
That's right. That's right.
Who, by the way, just moved back to our city about a year for mayor. Charlie Crist has spent decades running for office.
My Lord.
I have spent the last 5 years doing the job of mayor of my hometown. There is a choice in this runoff. Whether we keep St. Petersburg moving forward that is accountable to our or turn our city over to out-of-town special interest money, $1.5 million spent just for this primary, money from outside of St. Pete, or shift back to the politics of the past. Look, to everyone who supported us tonight, and there's so many folks in this room who I want to say thank you to. Y'all have been doing the work in the hot sun, waving signs, canvassing, phone banking, doing so much. I want to thank each and every one of you all. To those who supported another candidate or are still deciding, I intend to earn your vote. Over the coming weeks, and as always, I will be in your neighborhoods, listening to residents and making the case for the progress we've made and what comes next.
And that's the incumbent mayor, Kenneth Welch, coming in second right now with 94% of the votes reporting, 94% of the precincts here. You can once again see Charlie Crist at 35%, Kenneth Welch at 21%, and former fire chief Jim Large at 18%. So We're talking about a runoff.
Yeah, and that really surprises me because we really saw enthusiasm for Gabbard, and Jim Large really came into the election with a lot of baggage from his time as fire chief. So that was actually very surprising. But, Charlie Crist spent over $2 million on a mayoral primary. So I think, we knew this would happen. I just didn't know who would be number 2 and number 3. So we're going to be watching closely to see how his message changes.
What always concerns me with things like this, especially in municipalities in Tampa, is that when you have that much money come in from developers, from corporate interests and that kind of thing, whose priorities do you have in mind? Do you have the people of St. Pete, or do you have the people who pushed in that $2 million, right? And I've known Congressman Crist for a while. We were on the trail together in 2022. I think he's a very genuine and real guy. But with every genuine and real politician, there's always the concern of what kind of money is talking into their ear, right?
At every one of his mayoral debates and town halls, he was very careful on how he answered the question. And it reminded me of something that was in the newspaper many, many years ago when we had paper newspapers. And that was that Charlie Crist has always been somewhat criticized for being a mile long and an inch deep. And I just hope in the general election that he can come up with real policy solutions so that voters can know what they're voting for.
And I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we should be getting a check mark soon here for Congressman Byron Donalds at 49% here.
All right.
To Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, 25%. But I can see on my screen that the AP has a check mark for Byron Donalds. The Associated Press is calling that one. And I guess
he fell below 50%.
And decision desk HQ just called for Moody.
And the decision desk has called for Senator Moody. Of course, she had challengers, but as expected, she was going to move forward to the November ballot.
And I think for this, the governor's race on the Republican side, people are going to look at Byron Donalds getting less than 50%. Some people might say that that's not very good. Some people are going to say there's a 4-way primary. And, to Jay Collins' credit, he's lieutenant governor. His campaign manager, Ted Veerman, helped run a really great race for him. They really did a good job all around the state of Florida. But, it is very tough to come against the president. It's tough to come against a sitting congressman who's on Fox News every day. And it's just it's
$55 million spent.
That doesn't
another
hurt.
50 and then another $50 million from friends of Byron Donalds.
But how will James Fishback, that 10% right there, how will that impact Byron Donalds?
Well, everybody who told me he wasn't going to get to double digits owes me a beer. So that is definitely already happening. But again, I think we talked about a little bit earlier is that are these James Fishback voters people who have never voted before, and that this is the first time they've ever showed up?
And are they going to come out?
Are they going to come out to vote? Are they just going to be? I don't know. I personally think that many of those people will
and then we have
eventually suck it up and come back and vote.
The Associated Press has called. You're looking at a live shot here of David Jolly's camp. The Associated Press has called this race, and David Jolly is going to be the Democratic nominee in this governor's race. So Byron Donalds v. David Jolly, and we've already seen the ads start.
I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. I think the real statewide surprise here is it looks like Angie Nixon's pulled it off.
That is a surprise. That is the surprise.
Again, maybe a surprise to you, but to the folks who have been backing her for many years. I think when the moment I knew was when Orange County is the beating heart of the Democratic Party in Florida. And when you saw Representative Maxwell Frost and Representative Anna Escamani at a press conference chanting Angie Nixon's name, I knew it was game over for Alex Vindman, who was not able to earn over the trust of our leadership that so much of our party, values their voice, especially coming out of that Orange County area.
Will this trial coming up in September hurt her chances leading to the general election? Because everybody's going to cover that misdemeanor trial, and just for the voters' minds, for her just having these charges during this election, do you think that will have an impact?
Well, I think there's 2 points to be made there. The first is that any attacks Republicans make on Angie Nixon for having misdemeanor charges will maybe get thrown right back in their face, given the governor's race with Byron Donalds' history, right? And then the second thing is that right now, what both anecdotally and the polling shows is that Democrats are fired up, not for voices who are going to capitulate to the president and write strongly worded letters, but who are going to get dragged out of the Capitol kicking and screaming. They want people who are going to fight. That's going to energize and motivate voters. And I think that working families who are struggling for every dollar right now sees her literally fighting for them, and that's going to be a boon to Democratic turnout.
But is that the future of the Democratic Party? Is that they're just people who decide that they're going to plant themselves in the middle and kind of cry and scream on a microphone and then get themselves arrested? I mean, instead of like actually working across the aisle or
hard to work across the aisle when you're throwing kids in blue hoodies in the back of unmarked vehicles.
And I should also add that the Associated Press has called this race. We should see a check mark soon. State Representative Angie Nixon will likely move forward onto the general election ballot. So we are talking a Nixon v. Moody. That's going to be a wild one because a UNF public poll, Tara, what did it show?
It really showed that Nixon was actually behind Vindman. And so this is really... It really did not show this kind of pullout. So I'm really surprised by this.
Your dependency on the polling. The polling has been wrong more and more across the country.
But I want to say that when you say that, you got to make sure that you say that against all of it. And so that means all the candidates
Vindman had a lot of money.
He did have a lot of money.
But I did not see him on the ground. What did I say on Battleground Florida? Where is Alex Vindman?
I 100% agree with you, but I just want to just slow the horses here for a minute. Angie Nixon might have the fight in her, but she's going to have to pivot her campaign right now because Ashley Moody has been in the job for now over a year and she knows policy and she's practiced. And so if Angie Nixon can actually speak the same language as Ashley Moody, she's got a chance. Otherwise, the voter enthusiasm for Democrats isn't just going to launch her into winning the U.S. Senate race. She's going to have to produce policy stances. And right now,
she has policy stances.
And let's take a
she's
pause
just on
there.
TV and isn't able to talk about immigration policy, environmental policy.
Former Governor Charlie Crist talking again to journalists. Let's listen in.
In St. Petersburg, Florida. It's the best.
What do the next 70 days look like for you?
A lot of hard work, just getting out with the people, going to different neighborhood associations and listening a lot. My dad used to always tell me and my three sisters, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Respect his ratio, and all glory to God. And I will do that. I will listen.
How are you going to make sure that people realize that you are the best choice and also address the issues that people are concerned about regarding keeping the rates here as well as the infrastructure?
I think they already feel that way, or we wouldn't have had the 15-point margin tonight. But I'm just going to keep listening and working for them and doing everything I can to make sure that I take their message to the rest of the people throughout the city.
How do you get the vote that went to the other people in the race, not to Mayor Ken Welch, but to Gabbard and Large? They both had 15%, 15%. How do you get those voters to vote for you and not Mayor Welch?
I think just keep doing what I've been doing, being a good listener, caring about them. Charlie Crist actually cares, and I care deeply about this city, and I'll do everything I can to make it more affordable, to keep it safe, to make sure that we keep the Rays, the baseball team here. We got a shot. I mean, it looks like Hillsborough and Tampa don't have their act together, and we have a stadium already, and we just put $60 million into it. It's a beautiful place, and they're probably going to go to the World Series, and I want to keep them in St. Petersburg.
We held several positions, governor and several other elected official positions. How will the mayor position be different?
Well, it's local. It's my hometown. What's the old expression? Home is where the heart is.
Yeah, we're taking
right,
the boys.
Chelsea?
We're taking the boys to football. And,
yeah.
It's for me, it's less of a commute. I mean,
That's right. Yeah, it's great.
couldn't imagine. And a big
gonna be
point
fun.
for you is affordability. How do you sway those voters to maybe vote another way that you have the points to be able to make this place more affordable?
I'm the only one who's proposing a property tax cut in this race. I'm the only one who, as governor before, was the last governor who cut property taxes throughout the state. You can believe me. You can trust me. I'll get it done.
Thank you.
And that was former Governor Charlie Crist talking about the St. Pete mayoral race. And the big surprise there is Rays staying in St. Pete. He's been saying that. What are your thoughts?
Hillsborough Community College would have something to say about that. That's not in his total control, and he's not being mayor of St. Pete. It's not the same as being governor
I asked
of the
him
state.
if that's a pipe dream, and he was like, "No, America was a pipe dream, but look."
That sounds like Charlie.
I was like, okay, if you think so. But I do want to go to another race that has been called a U.S. House race. We are looking at Mr. People, District 15. This is the Democratic primary for U.S. House District 15. Robert People. Is there a surprise here? Pretty close. Democrats were split in this.
This is no surprise to me. I mean, Mr. People, he's been in this race by the longest. Amusingly, he has flip-flopped across a couple of races.
Yes.
He was in one race, and then he moved, and then redistricting happened, and then he moved again. But suffice to say, he's been getting out there. He's been getting FaceTime. He pops up on my TikTok feed occasionally while we have established.
We know you love the TikTok campaign. We know you love it.
It's not everything, but it is something, right? And when an election's this close, right, that extra 5-6% of recognizing from social media can really be the difference, right? So I think no real surprise here. I'm excited to see what he can do in that district. It's going to be pretty tough. He hasn't raised a crazy ton of money, but what we see often here in these congressional races, especially in Florida, is that a lot of people tend to stay out of it until after the primaries. So I think all of our candidates could see more money coming in. Whether or not it's a lot of money, that's a really big different question, but enough to maybe get the word out there, even in races like this one.
This is another one of these districts, District 15, very safe Republican district. This is Laura Lee's district.
Yeah.
She's doing fantastic in Congress as well. And I don't think she's sweating this race either.
I've talked to many Democrats, leadership, and they all said that, they're not focused on this at all. They didn't have the candidates.
I will say, though, is that these races, again, are not, you keep bringing it back to Anna Paulina Luna, Laura Lee, these candidates or these elected officials who are doing a great job. We have to remember, though, is less than 1% of voters are voting any divergence from top of ticket to the bottom of the ticket, right? This is going to be a referendum on Donald Trump and his performance as president. Whether we like that or not, whether that's good for our society or not, that's just facts.
I agree with you. I actually totally agree with you. That is what it is going to be. I just think that, again, when you start looking at the districts and the numbers, it almost doesn't matter. It's just a red district. Like, it's a 15-point district. It's a 20-point district.
It would definitely
structural advantage.
It's just not even close. Some of these.
But
it would definitely be a reach.
But I do think that you made a great point earlier about whether candidates can motivate people to come out who are turned off after these primaries. I think that's going to be very interesting.
And Tara, I just want to briefly mention, we're looking at a live picture of the Jolly camp here. We're fixing the camera there. But we are waiting for former Congressman Jolly to speak. He will address the crowd at any moment. But as soon as he starts to speak, we will go right back to that shot. The race has been called for former Congressman Jolly, as expected,
and
with 62% right there.
Ty, a lot of people think that his success was in part because of his unique decision to add Gwen Graham early as a running mate. And he was able to secure, of course, he's a homegrown Tampa guy, but he was able to get other areas of the state motivated to come out and vote for him because of Gwen Graham.
So you're saying it wasn't a good idea to try to maybe wait until yesterday to announce a running mate? That maybe that's not the best method of doing it?
I think we all scratch.
Is this a familiar face for
Oh,
you?
Rick Baker. Yeah, Rick Baker.
Let's listen in to see what he has to.
And it was very successful, very highly rated. Some mistakes have been made over the past number of years, but I think get a mayor in who will work hard at it, put the plan together and execute it, but always do what you think is right for the city. Not what's right for this person or that person, what's good for the city. And I know Charlie Crist is going to do that. He's going to put the plan together and execute, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's figuring out what we're going to do at the Trop site. I think he's going to be very focused on all those things. And the other thing, he's always had an open door. So people are going to be able to call him and say, I have an idea, I'd like to talk to you about it. I think anybody in the city is going to be able to do that. And I think that's a great thing to have.
You mentioned that the city needs to come together. I know Charlie had mentioned during his speech that there's people from all political parties who are here tonight. What do you think that he's bringing with his executive experience as being a governor, as being a congressman, that we don't already have? Beyond just obviously those titles, what is he bringing to the city?
I think he does bring a very deep executive experience that he's had from the governor's office and the other positions that he's held. But he also brings with it an energy, a desire to come in every day, to work hard every day, and focus on how to address the issues of the city and make them better. Again, whether it's infrastructure or affordable housing, what to do with the Trop site. I'd love to get. And
of course, Tara, that was a former St. Pete mayor endorsing and backing Charlie Crist.
Not just a former St. Pete mayor, but a Republican
Yes.
a former mayor. And I think that's what Charlie Crist was trying to say to people, is that he's bipartisan.
And then now I do want to go to the Jolly camp because Gwen Graham is now addressing the audience there. Seems like we're having some audio issues with Gwen Graham's mic over there, but we will be sure to try to go back as soon. We'll try one more time here.
I know that I am the much, much older sister, the much older sister. But why are we here tonight? We are here tonight because we believe in a better Florida. And guess what? We are going to win back the governor's office in November. We are going to win back the governor's office in November. I cannot wait to call my dear friend David Governor Jolly. But I have to share with y'all that I am thinking tonight of my own father, Bob Graham, and how proud he would be of all of us here tonight, because all of us here tonight are fighting for Florida. We're fighting for Florida. But I feel Dad right here on my shoulders. My dad and my mom are so beloved all across the state of Florida for their decades of public service. My dad believed deeply in the inherent decency of every person. He was deeply committed to the promise of a better Florida, where everyone is treated with respect and dignity, and where everyone has the opportunity to build a great life for themselves and their families here in the state of Florida. But sadly, my dad would look at our state today and be deeply troubled, because that promise of a better Florida is quickly slipping away. Our unemployment rate today is higher than the national average. Our cost of living continues to rise. Florida used to be a place people flocked to, not just because of its natural beauty and our wonderful sunshine, but because it was a place you could afford to raise a family or retire comfortably. We have a property insurance crisis that Tallahassee refuses to solve, and a housing affordability crisis that is limiting our kids' ability to buy a home and build wealth. What would trouble my father most, though, is that his grandchildren, including my daughter and my 2 sons, don't see Florida as a place they can raise their kids, because the possibilities they grew up with in this state no longer exist for the next generation. It's time. It's time to bring change to Florida, and that's exactly what we're going to do on November 3rd. But it starts tonight. It starts tonight. One party has completely controlled Tallahassee for nearly 30 years, and now they say, give us 4 more years and we'll fix everything. Floridians are fed up. Not 4 more years, no 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 more years. Folks, when I said that, it just reminded me of my dad. He always said, folks. He's right here, y'all. You deserve a governor and lieutenant governor who will fight every day to build an economy in which every single Floridian has a shot to get ahead. A Jolly Graham administration will take on the corrupt politicians and the special interests who are making your lives harder. The power companies that keep increasing your rates, the insurance companies that keep raising your premiums, and the crooked politicians who keep rigging the rules so it's harder for you to get by. And let me tell you who won't fight for you. Byron Donalds has been bought and paid by the big data centers, the utilities, the speculators, private equity, and insurance companies, because they know he will do whatever they tell him to do. Tonight, Boo is right. Boo is right. Tonight, we welcome each of you to join a coalition of Democrats, political independents, and Republicans who want government to work for the people again, not the special interests. When I was a kid right here in Miami Lakes, my father used to preach that Florida was an amazing place to live, an amazing place of opportunity for immigrants escaping crime, communism, and political corruption, opportunity for young people looking for an affordable place to build their lives, and opportunity for seniors to live out their retirement in this paradise that we are fortunate to call home. David and I believe that Florida can again be a land of opportunity, where if you work hard and play by the rules, you can get ahead, where you can afford to buy a house in a safe community, and where you do not have to choose between filling your children's prescriptions and buying groceries. We are going to turn the page onto Florida, where insurance companies write their own rules and utility companies have a blank check to buy politicians. And unlike Byron Donalds, we don't believe data centers should be forced into your community against your will. David and I will work to expand affordable housing and reduce the cost of building starter homes and help first-time home buyers get their first homes. We will finally join the 41 other states that have expanded Medicaid and invest in rural and community-based health care so that people who live who are disadvantaged or who live in rural communities don't have to drive hours to get the care they desperately need. David and I are committed to a 10-year renaissance in public education that will make our state a global leader in education. And we will ensure academic excellence and independence in our colleges and universities. We will protect Florida's natural environment and pursue balanced growth, protecting our water, wetlands, beaches, and coastlines and other natural resources is not anti-growth. It's not anti-growth. It is essential for our economy, our public health, quality of life, and we will bring back long-term planning to environmental policy, strengthen resilience, and reject the false choice between economic growth and conservation. That is a false choice. And we are going to put an end to the ridiculous, nonstop culture wars.
Governor of the free state of Florida. What a journey. What a journey this has been. All of these months, all of these months.
You're looking at right now, this is Congressman Byron Donalds' campaign. This is Mrs. Donalds. So we are getting ready to listen to the congressman talk right now. We will be monitoring this picture and waiting to see when the congressman comes out. We are also waiting to see when former Congressman David Jolly will address his crowd. And so we are looking at a Jolly v. Donalds. Oh, man, it's about to get wild.
It is.
The campaign commercials.
I can't wait.
They've already started.
They've already started.
Yeah.
But, just let's put this in perspective. There were 11 candidates in the Republican primary, and there were 6 in the Democratic primary. But this was almost a fait accompli. And so it's sort of like we're living out, even though it was a crowded field, what we all thought was going to happen. But now these campaigns are going to pivot. They're going to pivot to a general election and try to actually reach across the aisle. Neither one of them can win without some peeling off of the other side.
How hurt is Jay Collins tonight?
Yikes.
I don't know if he's hurt. I think that this has been kind of a foregone conclusion a bit. I think that this was a decision he made to go run for governor. He knew he didn't have the governor's support immediately. He made the decision. So you knew what you were getting yourself into. And again, like I said, he's
and now we will tune in and listen to the Democratic nominee for governor, David Jolly.
Folks, there is a new coalition emerging in American politics tonight, and it's starting right here in the state of Florida. A coalition rooted in the everyday majority that understands the economy should continue to grow, but it's got to grow for everybody. That we embrace capitalism, that we let the private sector lead, but the government needs to do its part to fill in the gaps, to provide for housing, for health care, for education, clean water, clean air, safe communities, and a coalition that knows that everybody's rights should be protected and their dignity respected. This is a coalition not bound together by party, but bound together by patriotism. Because this new majority in American politics understands something very important tonight, that we are celebrating more than just a primary victory. We are celebrating the return of a resiliency, the renewal of a hope, the belief in each other once again, the belief in something better, that we are better in this moment than where our leaders are dragging us. Because this majority also understands tonight, sadly, that we are a nation that is broken. We are a nation in crisis. We are more divided than ever before. Our leaders wake up every day and they tell us to hate each other, and it's wrong. It's wrong. This is a moment where we are believing again in each other, not because of the strength of an ideology, but because of the strength of a people. Because the values that are holding us together are American values that have made this nation strong, that have created the greatest amount of economic and upward mobility the nation's ever seen. But we're being strained tonight, but we're rising to this moment together. To my Democratic friends, thank you for welcoming me into the party. Thank you. Thank you. We have built friendships. We have found common ground. We have gathered around the values of our party. And I want to thank you for your friendship. And I want to thank you tonight for giving me the opportunity to be your nominee to be the next governor of the state of Florida. You see, when we talk about the values that hold us together, many of you have heard this. These values are found in the history of the Democratic Party. It's why I came into the Democratic Party, not to change it, but to grow it. You see, the values that, yes, everybody deserves an economy that works and a government that's helping out means a state catastrophic fund for homeowners insurance. It means an investment, a historic investment in workforce and affordable housing. It means the delivery of more health care and more communities. And yes, it means a commitment to public education in the state of Florida once and for all. And yes, that value that everybody's rights should be protected and their dignity respected means regardless of the color of your skin, where you were born, who you love, or who you worship, regardless of your abilities, your special abilities, your disabilities, or your walk of life. Whether your foundations are rooted in faith or Jefferson's natural rights of man, what we know is everybody deserves the economic liberty and the personal liberty that was at the foundation of the start of the nation. We got so much wrong. We got so much wrong at the beginning. People of color were 3/5 of a person. Women did not have economic or legal rights. But that arc of history bent towards progress. That arc has bent backwards in the last 8 years. And it's one of the reasons that people are asking for change. To my Democratic friends, thank you for this opportunity. The values that hold us together are big enough to build a coalition tonight to win the governorship in November. And to my Republican and independent friends, I want to share with you the values that I have always fought for. You see, I do think government should be lean. Government should be held accountable. But government should be smart. Because you see, when we deliver a state catastrophic fund for homeowners insurance, we lead the world with an economic model that not only covers hurricanes and wind, but it cuts private homeowners insurance bills by 60 to 70%. When we deliver more health care to people, we actually reduce the cost to a system in a state where we are 49th in avoidable hospital costs. And when we commit to public education, we create a more resilient economy. We empower youth and we change lives. So yes, government should be lean and efficient, but it should be smart. We should be a state that commits to low taxes. And yes, I do believe in the old school Republican principle of local control. The government closest to the people actually does know best. As your governor, I will undo preemption, because every local official in this state, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, knows that your rights and your authority and your local decision-making have been under attack through this governor and his preemption. And I will also tell you, yes, as an old school Republican, I talk about ending the culture wars not to celebrate some progressive platform, but because I still believe in the old school Republican libertarian policy that government should simply stay out of your life and stay out of your bedroom and stay out of your doctor's office. You see, real freedom, not the freedom manufactured in Tallahassee these days, real freedom. Yes, and if it sounds familiar, Republicans and Independents tonight, it's because while some of your leaders may have forgotten their roots, I have not forgotten mine. You see, this moment is bigger than party. I also want to address a very specific community tonight, and I will ask you to give me grace, but this conversation needs to be had. I want to address the faith community across the state of Florida tonight. Many of you know I am a child of the church. I celebrate my faith. Lauren,
then you are listening to the Democratic nominee for governor, that is David Jolly, in Miami Lakes, talking to his supporters. He will face Congressman Byron Donalds. The congressman just took to the stage right now. We will go ahead and listen to what he has to say to his supporters.
Like I'm part of the jail, slaughtering stale competition. I got the whole block wishing they could run with my division, but they all fishing.
Erica, there's a lot of love in this room tonight. A lot of love. I want to start by thanking God for all his blessings and protection over my family and over my team. I also want to thank the most important people in my life. To my amazing family, Erica, my incredible wife of 23 years. And our sons, Damon, Darren, and Mason, thank you guys for standing by my side during the long days and the late nights on the trail. I love you guys. I love you. I want to thank all of our supporters. All of you are here, and many, many more. And I want to thank the best campaign team in all of America. We've been crisscrossing Florida. We've been knocking hundreds of thousands of doors, taking our message to all Floridians. And tonight, because of your sweat, because of your hard work, we have won a massive victory. Now, we've just come through a hard-fought primary. I got a call from Paul Renner and James Fishback tonight. And they, hold on, I'm gonna tell you why in a moment. And they congratulated me and all of us on a hard-fought victory. And my conversation with both of them is very simple. Congratulations. Let's go beat David Jolly in November. You see, because individual opinions and passionate supporters are the beauty of our conservative movement. But tonight, the primary is over. Tonight, we put aside our differences. Tonight, we are one united Republican Party. You see, I remember Erica and I were sitting around a fire pit last year with friends, and we were talking about this campaign, and we were talking about the future of Florida. No matter the issue or the policy, the conversation always ended with us talking about the Florida dream. For us, it's personal. You know my story. I came to Florida 30 years ago on a Greyhound bus. At 17 years old, with just a trunk full of clothes, I arrived in Tallahassee. Go Noles. Go Noles. I could have sworn it was opening weekend here in Orlando because it became Noles Nation here tonight. But in all honesty, and Blaze Ngolia, our CFO, is here with us. Blaze, congratulations on a decisive victory. And Blaze has heard me say this, and I mean it. I love all of our schools now. I love them all. When Erica and I got married, it wasn't always easy. Our first apartment was 1,200 square feet, and it had those old Jalowsi windows. We didn't have the money for the security deposit, so we had to roll that into our rent. I worked at Cracker Barrel and moved furniture on the weekends just to make ends meet. Erica was 6 months pregnant with our first son, and she worked full-time as a staff accountant while working for Kelly Services on the weekend. We did this to build a life for our family. This state gave me a chance. I went on to spend 17 years in banking, finance, and insurance, and it prepared me for the very real economic challenges that Floridians face every single day. You see, the Florida dream to us is clear. It's the promise that if you work hard, you can get ahead, own a home, raise your family, and give your kids a better shot than you had without government holding you back. In Florida, we have built a strong foundation under former Governor Rick Scott. And under Governor Ron DeSantis, we have supercharged that foundation, making Florida the envy of every state in America. We are going to continue that legacy and take Florida to the next level. To protect and expand that dream for the next generation, my administration will be guided by 3 pillars: making Florida accountable, achievable, and most of all, affordable. An affordable Florida starts with a limited government that respects hardworking taxpayers who fund it. Under my watch, every contract, every budget, and every fee this state spends will be posted online, out in the open, where you can see it. We are going to continue the Department of Government Efficiency that was started here in Florida under Governor DeSantis. As your governor, we are going to doge all local governments and all state agencies. There will be no sacred cows. Taxpayers deserve to know that their hard-earned dollars are being spent efficiently, transparently, and with total integrity. An achievable Florida means every Florida child gets a real shot at the Florida dream, no matter where they start. We are going to make sure our kids master math, reading, and writing, not just to have the best K-12 system in America, but to have the best K-12 system in the world. And we know in a modern economy, there are multiple ways to be successful. That's why we're establishing the Launchpad Initiative, an employer-led program connecting high school juniors and seniors with in-demand careers in construction, aerospace, defense, and manufacturing. They will learn, they will earn, and they will graduate into high-paying six-figure jobs without student debt. Because if a kid can make real money right out of high school, that's a kid already building the Florida dream for themselves. And right here in Florida, we are going to lead the world in commercial space. Cape Canaveral is no longer a museum. It is the most active spaceport in the Western Hemisphere. We are going to slash the red tape, expand our technical workforce, and keep the welders, machinists, and engineers of the future right here in the Sunshine State. An affordable Florida means a Florida that stays a place that you can actually afford to live. From your tax bill to your insurance premium to the cost of your health care. First, we're going to keep cutting your taxes. When I was in Washington as a member of Congress, I fought for your federal taxes to be cut. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and the largest tax cut on Social Security in this country's history. That's real money back in your pockets, in the pockets of Florida workers and Florida's retirees. And as your governor, I will continue to fight to make sure you keep more of your hard-earned money. On property taxes, whether Amendment 3 passes or fails, we are going to reform property taxes in our state with the goal of eliminating homestead property taxes once and for all. And if the math can't take us there, we will target that relief to our seniors on fixed income and our working families who want Florida to remain their home. And let's be very clear. And I see Sheriff TK Waters from Duval County is right here in front. How you doing, TK? At the same time, hey, Steve Witt in Hendry County. At the same time, we will not jeopardize funding for our police, firefighters, and first responders. Because they have our backs, and we have theirs. On insurance, you pay your premium every single month on time, and you deserve real results. We will create a public scorecard on every insurance company in Florida, tracking how fast they pay claims and how often they deny them, bringing real competition, real transparency, and real accountability to drive rates down. On housing, we are going to slash government red tape, so that whether you're a young worker starting out or a growing family or a senior on fixed income, you can actually buy and afford a home in Florida. On healthcare, under our Your Doctor, Your Price plan, we will require healthcare providers to post real cash prices for all procedures up front in plain English. No prior authorization games, no surprise billing, and we are going to align state prescription drug pricing with federal pricing so you pay less at the pharmacy counter. And finally, on power and artificial intelligence, we will lead in innovation, but we will not put the cost of AI on the backs of Floridians and their electric bills. We will mandate closed-loop systems for water. We will enforce strict setbacks for residential neighborhoods, protect our pocketbooks, protect our communities, and protect our environment, or no data centers, period. And please remember this, none of our prosperity works without safe streets. In Florida, law and order will always be the standard. We will back the blue, we will support our sheriffs and police officers, and we will keep our communities safe. Now, an accountable, achievable, and affordable Florida is our vision for the future. But in 77 days, Florida, we face a critical choice. In November, we will be facing off against liberal David Jolly. Oh, I see you've heard of him. Well, let me tell you some more. David Jolly is a career political insider, a Washington lobbyist casting checks for special interests, and an MSNBC commentator who was part of the very revolving door he claims he'd clean up. David Jolly represents everything that folks hate about Washington, D.C. Liberal David Jolly is the change that Florida cannot afford. When it comes to your wallet, Jolly opposed cutting taxes for working families and seniors. Jolly defended a $4 trillion tax hike that would raise taxes on every Floridian, taxing your tips, taxing your overtime, and taxing your Social Security on seniors who spent a lifetime earning. Jolly would rather you pay more than $3,000 in taxes every single year. On property insurance, his plan is government-run socialism that forces you to prop up state funds with your tax dollars. When COVID hit, David Jolly chose Fauci over Florida. He fled to Pennsylvania because he wanted endless lockdowns over common sense leadership by Ron DeSantis. And he later said that Fauci has unimpeachable judgment. Well, let me be very clear. Anyone who chose Fauci over Florida does not deserve to lead our state into the future. On law enforcement and the border, he wants to end Florida's cooperation with federal authorities and has floated open borders. On our children, David Jolly actively champions radical gender policies and opposes protecting our children from life-altering transgender surgeries. This is a man who says he found his home in the Democrat Party, and that the Democrats are right on all the issues. David Jolly said he felt welcome in the Democrat Party under Kamala Harris. That's what he said. The same Kamala Harris that left our borders open, left our streets unsafe, and created the largest inflation most Americans have ever seen. Florida, David Jolly is out of his mind. And to top it all off, he has vowed that on election night that he wants to apologize for Florida to the rest of the world.
So you are listening to Congressman Byron Donald speaking to his supporters in Orlando. We, of course, heard from Gwen Graham and David Jolly. They will be on the Democratic side, and then Byron Donald. It's unclear who he will choose as his running mate, but I'm pretty sure we will learn that soon. But again, this is Congressman Byron Donalds, the Republican nominee in the gubernatorial race. Let's look at what the election results show. Byron Donalds, 48%, the lieutenant governor, 25%, and James Fishback, 10%. James Fishback, he spoke moments ago in Tampa. Now all of his supporters have left. What are your thoughts on this? Who will Byron Donalds pick for his running mate? And of course, we're going to ask Jake.
Well, I don't have a great answer because it is one of those things. It's still a bit of a mystery. Sometimes these things kind of leak out if you're in politics. And right now, I've heard a couple different names. There's a lot of people saying that it could be Meg Weinberger from State House Rep down in Palm Beach County, where I'm from. And it's very possible. But I don't know until it happens. And I think it will matter who he chooses because right now, as you saw with Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, you can either hang out in that position and go off into the sunset and go run a college like FIU, like Jeanette Nunez did, or you can get on a plane and go tackle fugitives in California and then come run for governor. You can use it however you want, clearly. So it really depends on how who he wants to bring in and what their future ambitions are.
And then, Tara, we have a poll from that was sent to us.
Yeah, the Heart Research, and it's a statewide survey that was taken just a few days ago. And why it's so important who that running mate is because Byron Donalds is coming in on this poll with more negative ratings than positive, which is in contrast to David Jolly, who looks like he has a 10% greater positive rate than negative. And this becomes really important who Byron Donalds picks as his running mate because of the independents. We keep coming back to the no party affiliate independents, who right now have a margin of error of a negative 4.0, but 48% favorability to Jolly to 34% to Byron Donalds, which means that Jolly is really gaining with the independents. And so who Byron Donalds picks as that running mate really help erode some of that.
There are some topics that we will hear a lot on the campaign trail in the gubernatorial race. We heard Byron Donalds touch on them when it comes to Jolly's belief for trans people and their health, and then also about Fauci and COVID and the handling of all of that. How do you think that will impact this race when it comes to trans health and COVID?
Well, listen, only 1.7% of high schoolers are trans in our state. And there are a lot more people suffering from kitchen table issues like affordability, affordable housing, healthcare, how to pay for their kids' college, those kind of things. So although I know Jake and a lot of Republicans think that running on an anti-trans platform really gins up the Republican base, and maybe it does, it doesn't necessarily speak to those independent voters who are going to be so important to a razor-thin election.
I would like to say it's not an anti-trans platform. It's an anti-trans in women's sports platform, and there might only be 1% of trans people in the state of Florida that would decide they want to play sports, but somehow they end up getting themselves involved with, the high school girls volleyball team. Now it does matter to everybody at your school district and all the parents and everything. So it does matter. The WNBA is having an absolute disaster the past month because you have two, grown men who are in the NBA who have declared for the draft, and now they've got to go have meetings about what a woman is, and can they actually really declare for the draft since we're all so pro-trans athletes?
Is that taking away from the issues that people really care about?
That's exactly the point.
You know what, people look, obviously, yes, the number one issue is still always going to be affordability. It's people really do care about their houses, but again, some of that stuff is a little hard for the average person to comprehend on how are you really going to fix it. You talked about how Jolly didn't really give the answer. I don't know if Byron Donalds has really given the answer, but you know what people can have an opinion about? They can have an opinion on whether or not an NBA or should Michael Jordan be able to go play in the WNBA. It's easy for everyone to have an opinion about it, and so we're going to talk about it.
I don't think it's very complex to for the voter to wrap their mind around. Frankly, I think it's a little insulting to the average voter to say that they can't wrap around the fact that Byron Donalds has endorsed Donald Trump's endless war that has driven gas prices up, his tariffs that have done nothing except increase costs for the average American to the U.S. economy. Grocery store visits are costing the average Floridian up of 20%, saying they can't wrap their minds around that and trying to distract them.
Can't wrap their minds around the solutions being presented. Not that they can't wrap their mind around it being expensive, but when you come out there and you understand these candidates come out there with these platforms, it's a lot of the average people, the reason why we have, what's the turnout tonight? 25%?
It's low.
Yeah,
75% of people don't think that any of the people on the ballot are even worth voting for.
And as 75%. We continue this conversation, we will, as you can see in the middle, we will be going through all of the races just so the viewers and listeners will be able to not only listen to us, but see the results in all of our races, starting with the governor, as you can see with David Jolly clinching the nomination there. And that's what 735,000 votes for him. And the next person has 161 or
181.
181.
And again, that's just a crazy showing for a candidate who raised functionally no money and campaigned almost exclusively online. That's a very impressive showing from her. She was her last ad she released in the last couple weeks there was very moving, I felt, and I hope she doesn't go anywhere. In fact, I hope she campaigns with Jolly on the trail.
And what do you think about Jolly and Gwen Graham? Is that a strong enough ticket?
I think with Angie Nixon flanking them, it sure is. I think that there are a lot of voters who are looking for an alternative. I think there are a lot of voters who are excited and fired up for potentially breaking 30 years of Republican rule. I mean, what we can't forget here is that Republicans have had 30 years in Florida to prove their proof of concept. 30 years, and it has come to a breaking point. They have a trifecta in D.C. and a trifecta in Florida. And what have they done with it? Endless wars and crazy prices. And I think voters are ready for change. And I think especially Angie Nixon is going to help drag out some of those voters who may be looking for a more progressive voice to actually represent them. And they'll vote David Jolly while they're there too.
And she has never said that she is a DSA
She
candidate.
is not.
But she is progressive. But I know that Republicans, Jake, will likely try to tie her to the DSA platform, since she does say she wants Medicare for all, which is a progressive stance. Do you think she has a true chance at beating Ashley Moody in November?
I think here's the reality of the situation is that we just saw with several of these races, sometimes it's not about who has the most money. It's about who can deliver the message to the voters, right? And right now, Byron Donalds is going to have a huge fundraising advantage. I'd wager to say that Ashley Moody is probably going to have a large fundraising advantage too. But that is not always the difference between victory and defeat. And again, I'm going to circle back to what I said previously, which is that I don't think a lot of these races are going to be a evaluation of Ashley Moody's performance as a senator so much as an indictment of Donald Trump functionally and his failed policies. I mean, I think that if Angie Nixon can win, it's by a combination of a lot of very frustrated independent and Democratic voters, as well as some crossover Republican voters, as you mentioned previously, and as well as you're going to see this new wave. I mean, I flicked open during the break my Instagram, and there were 100 posts already of people posting videos extremely excited for Angie's victory. That's going to bring real energy.
I got to add something to this. I think you're 100% right, but I think you also have to add that you need outside money and messaging that reveals Ashley Moody's record, especially when she was AG.
Will Hope Florida impact?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think if outside money, independent or expenditure money can come in and make that connection, Angie Nixon gets closer. Does she beat her? Hard to say, but she gets closer.
I think to Jackson's point earlier, this is really, at the end of the day, how do people feel about the Republican Party in D.C.? They're not going to vote for Angie Nixon. They're not going to vote for Ashley Moody. Very, very few people. They're going to vote for the governor, number one. And Republicans, as much as there's a lot of people, 50% of people do not like Byron Donalds tonight enough to vote for him, right? Every single one of them are going to turn around and go, you know what? We don't want Fauci's, policies to come down here. We don't want our Surgeon General to be replaced. We don't want all these other things. And you know what? They're going to suck it up in November. And I think that they're going to suck it up and they're going to go and they're going to vote for whoever the candidate is. The candidate is Byron Donalds. So that's what the average person in Florida is going to vote for. And then, like you said, there is going to be a bit of a backlash against what's happening in DC, but I don't know if the candidates matter as much down the ballot with some of the way that you're talking about turnout.
Maybe not to the extent of a 10% swing, but I think we're all in consensus here that Florida is going to be a more competitive year than it's been in recent.
Yes.
And so here's where I'm at. You've heard the saying, I think you're right, Jake. Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line.
So you think like a mixed cabinet, like some Republican, some Democrat?
I think it's not impossible. JJR running for Attorney General didn't have a primary this evening. He's entering into the general election with a full war chest. He's raised quite a bit for a cabinet member.
And that you're talking about the Florida Attorney General.
Correct.
Race.
Yeah, he's a very strong candidate. He spent a lot of time in his career in South Florida, and Uthmeier doesn't really doesn't have a great reputation. He kind of personally oversaw the Alligator Alcatraz disaster, where millions of dollars kind of slipped in zero bid contracts into a Donald Trump
Can we pause
passion
really
project?
quickly? I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No
I
worries.
do want to say that Fentress Driscoll is the projected winner in State Senate District 16. This covers a portion of St. Pete and Hillsborough. She will replace State Senator Darrell Roussan. But again, Fentress Driscoll, who is the current minority leader in the State House, will move to the upper chamber in the next year.
I think it's crazy worth noting that that was done with 5,400 votes.
Yes,
like the upper chamber.
Jackson, I was
right?
just
Like,
thinking that was.
I mean, if anything, that should encourage any young people across the state to
get out and vote.
To not just get out and vote, but to get out and run.
What is
right?
it? What does it tell you about the district? Because the district's predominantly black district. It's a predominantly Democrat district. There's no Republican in it. What is it? Does it tell you anything about where, as far as turnout and like if everyone's so mad at Donald Trump, why aren't these deep blue districts turning out even the primaries?
So I think there's always a direct correlation between the amount of money spent in a race and the amount of turnout. And that's bipartisan. It kind of is directly reflected in the voter registration, right? And that race only really had money come into it within the last week and a half here, with $250,000 coming in from Meta. And I think, a lot of voters, they aren't necessarily getting that information until maybe they've already turned in their vote by mail ballot. And what was interesting about that race to me is that I've worked personally with Representative Driscoll and Representative Rayner, and both of them have done some incredible stuff in Tallahassee. They've both been advocates. I personally was disappointed to see how nasty the race got, and I think a lot of voters felt the same. These are two advocates for a community who have, fought for working families' interests, and to see them kind of go head to head like that and it really get messy was kind of discouraging. And I think for a lot of folks that probably drove down turnout.
I think two things drive turnout down. First off, besides the fact that historically down in midterm elections, but the other piece is this affordability issue.
There we go.
I know. Geez,
it's tough for me too. Don't worry.
It honestly is paralyzing people from being able to show up for themselves. They're working 2 to 3 jobs. They're managing childcare.
45 days of early voting.
Just
they can
listen
send it
now.
mail
That's one factor. And I think the other factor is this, and Ty and I were talking about, this is the quietest primary we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
This has had the least enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It has been just sort of a
dud
of a primary.
If you're listening and you didn't vote, shame on you.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
I will say this though. I was doing man on the street interviews for my TikTok earlier today.
Of course you did.
TikTok at Jackson, Florida, if you're watching. So got a shameless plug. And I was talking to I was specifically trying to talk to young voters under 30, and what I was finding was outside of coffee shops, outside of gyms, outside of the grocery store and Chipotle, is that everybody was telling me not that I was kind of expecting the majority of answers to be there's a primary today. It actually more leaned to, I'm registered independent, and I found out too late that I had to have a party allegiance. So I think that could really play into turnout as well. Now, there are critical school board races, which I know you're an expert in. No.
I absolutely want nothing to do with the school boards. I will tell you right now, I think that the school board races you talked about, the Michelle Rayner race getting dirty. I think that these school board races get totally out of control. I think angry PTA moms, these unions, everything, like it gets the moms groups online in the Facebook groups.
Well, people
it's
care
crazy.
about their kids.
They get wild.
Kids,
yeah. So anyway, yes,
they're passionate about education.
Passionate word.
Suffice to say, a lot of people don't know that they can vote in elections like that.
And see,
right?
I'm
so they don't turn out.
NPA, and a lot of people who are NPA, of course, I vote, by the way, but a lot of people who are NPA are thinking, the primary is only for.
That's right.
Sorry to talk like that for NPA people, but that's what they think, and it's just like. Come on.
It is.
You can still vote for judges. You can vote for a school board.
But that's what's hopeful for the general election, because we will all be able to vote in the general election.
And where do you think independents will swing coming up with this war in Iran?
Based on this newest poll, the statewide poll, it's not looking great for statewide Republican candidates. And so there needs to be a reckoning
Governor
to that.
DeSantis built, Jake, is
totally fine. I'm going to throw water on Tara's stuff. I'm sorry. I just don't think
Governor DeSantis think that? That's a big question.
I genuinely just do not think that we have had such a demographic switch since after COVID. We had Republicans move to the state. You see the voter registration numbers.
But the New Yorkers are leaving.
Well, we got good New Yorkers too, actually. We got good New Yorkers. We got good people who are, I'm saying that because they're voting Republican. They're registering Republican. You look at the voter advantage, and this is, again, this just happened the last few years. The voter advantage for Republicans has gotten significantly better. We've stopped doing send mail-in ballots to everybody that's ever been in the state of Florida. Like, we're not like California, these places. So all of these things really, really affect that 4%, 8%, that's going to make the difference in the race. And again, it might be a 4% race, but I think Republicans are going to win the entire cabinet. And then we can talk about each House race might be a little closer. But
I mean, we can't dismiss the voter registration numbers, right? And like, we are in a very, very different position than we were pre-COVID right here in Florida. But what I will say, though, is that there are a lot of fired up independent voters.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to be able to listen to the CFO. He's going to be talking to some journalists. Let's listen in to see what he has to say. Blaze and Gold.
Look, we had great turnout all day. What we're seeing is that Republicans typically wait until Election Day and swamp the competition. That's what we've seen today. Everything that we saw today, I think, bodes well for the general election.
When it comes to Donald, he could possibly be the next governor. You could still be the CFO. What would it mean to work with him?
Look, I've known Byron for a very long time, about 20 years. Both him and I cut our teeth in politics during the Tea Party years. So our big things are making government cost less, more accountable, and making it more affordable. And that's what we're going to be working hard on. I've had a lot of conversations with him about it already, and we're both committed to that.
And how are you feeling in your own election?
Yeah, look, we like where we are at. We like the matchup in the general election. It is a contrast in styles and in the function of government. I cannot wait to get out there and make the argument to the people that that this state is unlike any other state in the nation, and we're going to work hard to keep it that way. We will never ever cede ground to the Democrats or the Democrat Socialists of America in this state.
Do you think David Jolly has a chance in November?
If Republicans turn out, and if they understand what this election is about, if they understand what policies he is trying to push that are antithetical to what the people of the state of Florida wants, no.
Well, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to say?
I'm good,
All
thank
right,
you.
well, thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was the CFO, Blaze Ngolia, giving us an interview. As you can see, his race, as expected, he was expected to, clinch this, no problem. And he's been pushing to reduce property taxes. Yeah, Jake?
I have an observation here. It's because we looked at the Wilton Simpson race. It was about 70-30. Is that still holding there?
Uh-huh.
I think that having your name first on the ballot is worth 9%.
9%. I agree.
Genuinely 9% in this race because Blaze and Wilton have generally the same. They have the same amount of money, demographic, all these other things, and you've got the situation. Is being first on the ballot worth 9%? It's very possible.
I will actually say the science does support that. In a what we call a quote unquote blind ballot, where neither candidate is spending a lot of money to get their name out.
I think if you have a ZZ Top beard and a hat, that definitely gets you 9%.
But your face isn't on the ballot.
Look at that beard.
But people know.
I wish I had that beard.
I kind of think that beard is something.
I was going to say I'm about as
I have
insider
the
as it gets, and I've never heard of this guy before.
I've only seen
you
him.
have the Blazing Golia.
I have the Blazing Golia, but I want the
I
Frank.
think the other thing though you got to know is that Blazing Golia and Wilton Simpson with the same numbers around about.
Yeah,
they've been around for a very long time.
Right.
But they're also the two Republican leaders that have their eyes on the next 4 years. What's going to happen? After Byron Donalds, they're readying themselves.
There's a lot of people that are ready. There are a lot of people who did not get into this governor's race on the Republican side because they did not think they could beat Byron Donalds.
Yes.
And here we are, and but that's a long way away. There's a lot of things that can change between now and then between all of these different guys and their aspirations.
Yes, but Wilton Simpson and Blazing Golia, we know that their eyes are on a different prize.
The Republican Party also has a deep, deep bench in Florida, right? Like, I mean, we have Chris Sprouse, who is still, he hasn't been in power in 4+ years at this point, but he's still sitting on nearly $2 million in PAC money, holding it ready for a rainy day.
There's a few people like that that have a couple million sitting in PACs.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there is and that is something I do think Democrats struggle with here in Florida, is that because we have been in the super minority for so long, our bench isn't very deep, right? Like, we're running statewide candidates who are functionally political outsiders in some cases, right? And then in races like State Senate District 16, our some of our most outspoken advocates are fighting each other, right?
Yes.
And bringing each other down. And so I think that is, if Democrats are going to regain power in the Sunshine State in any capacity, one of the biggest things they have to focus on quickly is, one, delivering actual change, right? Because otherwise the pendulum is just going to swing back.
Well, I would say first win.
Yeah.
We all know that if Jolly wins, he has to do most things by executive order and just fight it in the courts.
Yes.
Because he will be battling a Republican legislature, which won't, work
Yeah,
with him
but
on
you know,
most
there's precedent
issues.
for those executive orders. So
There's precedent for the executive orders. The big thing that we can't forget about is judges, including the Florida Supreme Court, which would be huge. There's also
he'll be able to appoint.
And you know, there's been a lot of interesting arguments that have gone to the Florida Supreme Court to die in the last few years. There's also the Florida Surgeon General, which would be exclusively functionally appointed by David Jolly.
And what if there is a Democratic AG?
Yup, that could be huge.
Because that race is expected to be tight against James.
I think if there is a Democratic governor and a Democratic AG, frankly,
that's it.
Republican
For Trump as
leadership
well.
should be, to pardon my crudeness, they should be wearing their brown pants that day, because like there's that means there's going to be investigations into Hope Florida, investigations into Alligator
And then
Alcatraz.
the
People are
president
going to
who's a
jail.
resident.
Probably.
Let me just say this is a Democratic pipe dream.
This is a fantasy.
This is a Democratic fantasy that I just took part in. It's basically the dreams of Democratic consultants and strategists. It's just not happening. It's not happening. You're getting a Republican cabinet at the top of this ticket on Florida, and we do have basically controls in place to make sure that yes, if we do get one very liberal member, like we had a Nikki Fried for a while,
She wasn't really invited to the cabinet meeting.
she was. There's control. But again, you wonder what happened in Broward County back in those years. It's fine. It's fine.
I was there. I was covering it.
So you have some questions about some of these things, but again, it's just not happening. We're getting Republicans at the top of the ticket. Republicans are going to win the governor's race. They're going to win, and by whether it's a couple points or 10 points, that's really the debate. But I just don't see any of this other stuff playing out.
I think that what we really have to focus on for the next couple months is how we can deliver the message to voters that Republicans in Tallahassee have been hosing their families and lining their own pocketbooks for 30 years. And I think with prices being higher than ever, now, we always say voters pay attention when it affects them personally. I don't know a single Florida family that's not struggling with costs right now, no matter how much money they're making. And I think they may finally wake up to those ads that say, oh, wait, Republicans in Tallahassee have had the ball for 30 years.
For congressional races, I do think voters are thinking about cost when they go to the polls. But for the top of the ticket, for the gubernatorial, I honestly don't believe they're thinking about cost. They're probably thinking about data centers.
Yes.
That's going to be huge. And Jolly has already said moratorium through executive action. But Donald's says just more restrictions.
Yes, and I think there's also, you're onto something, Ty, about the difference between the top of the ticket and congressional district races. We also want our chief executive, even as a governor, to be somehow morally, right with us, sort of walk our line. And I think Byron Donalds is going to be, if outside money comes in and if David Jolly can harness it, he can make a message about some of the things that people are asking about, the hard questions of Byron Donalds, like his support of data centers, like his wife's interaction with charter schools and what that really looked like. And if David Jolly can run those kind of ads, it might be enough.
But I wonder if Byron Donalds will be able to hurt David Jolly's key voting bloc. The black voting bloc, specifically black men, because Byron Donalds is black. And then second, the black voting bloc really does not see eye to eye with the trans community.
Yes.
And if Byron Donalds continues to hit on the trans comments that David Jolly has made and that David Jolly supports, do you think that will play a key role in stopping David Jolly from getting the governor's mandate?
Consider one thing, 100% what you just said, except one thing. Look at the voting impact that demographic has. It's not as big as independents. So that
independents will decide this election.
Independents will decide.
I mean, I think that's something to be, frankly, like we need to. In 2024, independents across the state of Florida went nearly 70% for Donald Trump. There's it saying that that margin of voters is going to magically flip flop over to the other side. I could see a 20% flip. I really could, but so we could split them down the middle, but I don't see a 40-50% swing. I think that's historically that would be, even with the situation we are seeing right now with increased costs and gas prices, I think still a 50+% swing in independent voters in Florida.
But you don't need 50+. You need 45, 43.
And that would be a statistical anomaly that would be studied in political science textbooks for 20 years.
And you know what? The polling says it's possible, so it's possible.
And I always say never ride the polar coaster, just work.
This is the moment that we've come to give our final thoughts. We have about a minute left for this live stream here covering the elections. What are your final thoughts today?
I want to congratulate Luis Salazar, a longtime activist in Hillsborough County, who we didn't go over his election tonight, but he won his competitive primary.
West Tampa.
Yep. I also want to say, in terms of the statewide ticket, I think that between Representative Nixon, hopefully soon to be Senator Nixon, and David Jolly, both who I'm very, very excited, I hope they are able to campaign together and build ultimately what politics is about, which is a robust coalition to provide solutions for working families. And I think that ticket's able to get the job done, and I'm excited to watch.
And Jay?
I will say the biggest surprise of the night, congratulations to Mike Beltran. That race in the congressional district here in Tampa was the most competitive, I would say. I don't think we saw many surprises in the way that things turned out for the governor's race. I think I want to give a shout out to the high school student who made this alligator
I'll second that.
voter sticker that we all got today. Let me tell you something. This thing is an alligator with an 8-pack, and he's voting. And I love the idea that the Hillsborough County is doing that and giving the high school students the ability to make these voting stickers. And then again, I'm here to just pour water on all of the Democratic fantasies that they're going to win at the top of the ticket in November. But again, I think we still have a lot of work to do. We have to work very hard. And we also have these local races that do mean a lot. And Brittany Lissy will be in our school board runoff election November. It's not nonpartisan, but it's extremely partisan. It's how it works.
And Tara, we will give our final thoughts on Battleground Florida.
Just a shout out to all those election workers.
Yes.
Thank you for all you do.
I love tight races. I love heated races because I'm a journalist and I live for stuff like this. Thank you all so much for being with us. Jackson McMillan, Jake Hoffman, Tara Newsom, and myself. Thank you so much. And go vote in November. And we will see you later.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.